It's SJG D2 HBCU Football.
Sleep on Livingstone if you want to, and they can really punish you for it.
Fayetteville State, they're never sexy, but they won.
Sometimes we have to eat our crow, and I got to eat my crow this week, okay?
Doom alert. Yeah, we're back at Heartbreak Hotel, and we're checking back in.
What's up, good people? It's been a long time, and well, not really. But I was gonna try to rhyme, but we'll skip that. What's going on, everybody? It's SJG. Welcome to the HBCU Game Day D2 Football Show. This is show number 6, but we're in week number 4. I know things are just trust me. Unfortunately, it's gonna get a lot. Unfortunately, but kind of fortunately, it is gonna get a lot more complicated than it is, based off some things we just read, and we've got to kind of try to break down for you guys, but. In the meantime, in between time, please make sure that you guys hit that like button. And you know who it is. It's SJG here with the one and only Chris Ferguson, a.k.a. K-Ferg, the man of mystery maps. And I don't know if you drink Moet.
Yes.
I just got, there we go, Moet. Yes. That was a guest there. Yeah, man. We are on to a full slate week. This week, how are you feeling, though, first of all, this midweek as we are in between D2 HBCU football?
Man, I have so much anxiety because I'm just ready to get back to the weekend. There's just so much going on in HBCU football. I'm just so pumped, so ready. So I'm just trying to keep myself busy until Friday rolls around, and I know the next day it's going to be another frenzy.
Yeah, man. I think finally, man, this the secret. You've been laboring for a long time doing this, so have I. But I think finally the secret is out about Division II football amongst the greater HBCU sports diaspora, as our friend Dr. Cavill likes to say. Everyone is finally devoting some time and resources to the HBCU coverage, and very much needed. These leagues. I mean, last year the SIAC, and I'm sure it'll pick back up again. The work will pick up back soon, but the CIAA this year, these are just 2 really fun leagues to follow and some fun football to keep up with, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the way that this year is already unfolded is the markings of something different and something special. And I think that just adds to the mystique when it comes to this season in particular.
Yeah, man. When you talk about mystique, that means mystery. That means you don't know what's going to happen. And today we got a little bit of mystery and mystique dropped on our laps, just in a press conference that Chris was a part of, and that I just listened to. So we'll have it'll create some creative dialogue. But in between, I definitely want everybody to make sure that you're hitting up the comments. So please go ahead again, hit that like button, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, still gonna call it Twitter, or you are on YouTube, especially, please, and let us know who's watching, who you're representing, who's your D2 HBCU team, your HBCU in general, or just whose shirt you like better. So, Chris, we last week we started off with a bang in the D2 HBCU football world. We started off in the SIAC. Edward Waters taking on 2-time defending champion Benedict College. That game was it was so many things, Chris. It was at times exciting, at times maddening, at times like what the hell's going on, and then at the end we get a fantastic controversial finish.
Yeah.
Were you able to take in that game on Thursday night? And if so, or just what were your takeaways from the last second Benedict win?
Yeah, I didn't watch this game. I kind of followed up with more as a fan on Twitter or X, and kind of the chatter after the game in this particular case. And so, there seemed to be some issues with clock management and the refs that was pretty apparent, and heard a lot about that. But I mean, credit to Benedict, for pulling this out, because they, we thought that they were going to win against Lane. It didn't happen. The VSU game was pretty hyped up to start the season, but they got a lot of parts that they had to replace, and
Right.
you really didn't know what this Benedict team would be. But it's not like they're not a competent team. Like, they can move the ball, they can get into the end zone, and so big credit for them to finally be on the right side of that column, that win-loss column this particular week.
Yeah, I was able to. I followed it kind of off and on, but I tuned in for because the game went so long. It was, I think it was close. It was either close to midnight or right at midnight when it ended.
4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, just penalties, barrage of penalties. I think more than 24 between the two programs. There's so many debates to be had, but about replay. I think that's one that I think, as I look in another game as well that I was at this weekend, you could talk about replay as well. And I think I've seen the conversation come up. Is it time for our D2 leagues, specifically at the HBCUs, to begin to use the replay? Chris, I mean, you don't get very many Division II games on ESPN2. And Benedict, I believe, has been in 2 of them. I'm sorry, I think the other one was on NFL Network, but nationally televised D2 games, and that game could have benefited from some replay. What are your thoughts on that? And are there other D2 leagues that use replay, or is that just kind of a standard thing that nobody uses replay?
No, so the MIAA out in Missouri, they I think they're on their second season using replay, and typically I always look at them because their commissioner is very good about being on the cutting edge for Division II, and normally other conferences sort of follow their lead when it comes to football, I feel like. And so, and by the way, he also partnered with the MIAA, also partnered with the CIAA and the SIAC in trying to get week 0 last year. And so, they do a lot of things over there, and replay was one of those things that really that they kind of implemented in their league. And so several other leagues now do replay this year. But unfortunately for us, man, that we sometimes we can't even get a stream together, like much less replay. Trying to just view the game. There's several games out. People were trying to figure out to watch the game, and they couldn't get on because the stream wasn't any good. So there's some investment I think that has to happen, and I think it will take the league maybe stepping in to help there in order to implement replay. Because there were a couple of games where replay really could have made a difference, and certainly this was one of them. So is it needed? I would say I think so, but we're just not there yet. The 2 leagues are just not there yet.
Yeah, good stuff in the comments already, man. We got some great stuff. I see Fayetteville State's checking in, Ellis Connor. I see Miss Carolyn Anderson. She says she hopes that WSSU has a game this weekend. Me too. There's a game I'm planning on going to. We have to come out the gate with a winning vibe, for sure. Our guy Sly Williams, Sly the sports guy who hosts the Teddy Keaton show over on HBCU Game Day. Big shout out to him and the great work he does. He's asking about the Benedict game. How do you not cover number 47? He just beat you deep 5 seconds earlier. He'll go after the ball and get it. You have to have a safety over him. He's talking about how instant replay saved Clark Atlanta, which is our next game that we're going to look at. And of course, Mr. Henderson, always got to make sure we spread it out to the 2 oldest HBCU conferences. Sorry, little brothers. That's the way that works. So no, it's Chris. We talk about Clark Atlanta, and I know how you feel about these, Chris. I know you're not a fan of the D2 versus D1s as a principle.
Yep.
But hey, Clark Atlanta did it. Clark Atlanta did it. Your thoughts on that game, and just Teddy Keaton and those guys. Obviously, they had the tie with Florida Memorial earlier in the year, but those guys are rolling. They're really kind of carrying the banner for the SIAC early in the season. What are your thoughts on them and their comeback win?
Well, there's so much talk about in this game. The fact that Bethune-Cookman jumped out to a 21-0 lead. They stretched that lead out to 20 points again later in the game. And man, you look at some of these numbers and you're just like, wow, you just can't. It's just so unbelievable. The fact that they had 2 scoring drives of 98 or more yards, and you really can't go more than 98. It's 99 and 100, right? And the fact that they had 2 scoring drives, or they had to drive the field twice, and they just kept finding ways to do exactly that. The fact that David Wright passed 49 times, and well over 370 yards passing, to will this team to win. And then, you can't talk about this game without talking about the walk-off field goal, 55 yards. I mean, there's so many things to say. Man, I just feel like a game like this, if you're Bethune-Cookman, like, this game probably just breaks you. Like, how can you lose this game? I don't. You're supposed to have the advantage, and you lose a game like this at home, and that's absurd. I mean, but it's a shame, and I feel like these games will matter more if they actually counted to Division II. And I'm like, man, to Division II playoffs, like, why shouldn't they? They should. If you're going to schedule up like that, why not?
Right.
And mainly because you're starting to see more of the leagues in Division II having to find games by scheduling outside of Division II.
Right.
Like, Grand Valley had to play like the number, like, at the time 4 or 5 ranked team in Division III because they couldn't fill their schedule. And so I get it. Like, maybe you don't go down and let them be a countable game, but why not let the game be countable for FCS? Because that will make it much more worth it to these schools and some of these other ones that schedule up. It was just a fantastic game for Clark Atlanta. I mean, I have David Wright on my fantasy team. I actually picked him up, and yes, there is a Division II fantasy league. I picked him up, but I was afraid to play him because I'm like, man, like, you would think Bethune-Cookman would have the ability to, like, slow him down, or he kind of turns into the old David Wright that has like 3 interceptions in a game, and that didn't happen here. And that just shows the maturity of him, and also the lot of faith that he has in those receivers, and you can't overlook them either. So, man, like just such a great win. I mean, and the fact that some of the fans that had the guts to call that upset, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it was great. Shout out to SU Jag in the chat. I know she was able to catch some She's obviously from Southern, but she was able to catch some CIAA football action this weekend in Charlotte. We'll get to that game in a little bit. And yes, the referee problem is it's cross HBCU and all. So yeah, great win for Clark Atlanta. Team Rat Poison remains hotter than fish grease right now as they go back to SIAC play. Then we had over the Down East Viking Football Classic. Now, for those of you who don't know, that takes place at Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is about halfway between. I don't know if it's halfway. Yeah, Chris, you would probably know better than me. Is that kind of halfway between Fayetteville and Elizabeth City? Yeah, I don't think there's really a half. Okay, yeah, it's roughly so. It's on 95. So, yeah, man, you have Fayetteville State coming off a straight thumping against Valdosta State, fake VSU, and you had Elizabeth City on 2 wins on a winning streak after dropping the Shaw. Fayetteville State came out and looked like the Fayetteville State that we expected. Would you say Elizabeth City State turned back into a pumpkin What are your thoughts on that game? What were your impressions with that one?
It turned into a pumpkin in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that score was all second half for Fayetteville
Mm-hmm.
State. Like it was a very tight game, and you're just like, man, like, how far has Elizabeth City come? Have they come that far that like now they can give FSU some struggles? And the second half is just Fayetteville State spooled up and they just took off and left them, and that was kind of the result that I was sort of expecting from this game. And so, if you're Elizabeth City, right, it's kind of you gave her the old college try, but you still got some ways to go, and you kind of learn from it and move on. So.
Yeah, for sure. Fayetteville State, they have turned into the Air Broncos, man. With Joe Owens the quarterback, and he's playing pretty well. This is not your uncle's run heavy Broncos, right? Or am I being mistaken?
No, I don't think you're being mistaken at all. And it's they're back to playing two quarterbacks again between Joe Owens and Damari Daniels. They both passed for about the same, like a 3-yard difference between the two. And it is more passing than probably what people are used to, but I think that's just because Fayetteville State has just turned into running back by committee. They don't really have that one back that I think could like be that what they used to have with like Stevie Green years ago. That's not what they are now. So but it does give you this advantage of like you could kind of use players for like different situations, and that does work for them. And also Damari Daniels being athletic enough to be more of a runner also helps too. And so to see him come along as a passer, his evolution as well has been pretty nice to watch. But I think, I would say a lot of like when Fayetteville State get these coordinators in, that help to like advance these guys' games. That's what you're seeing, I feel like, right now with what they have going on.
Okay, good stuff there. Back to the SIAC, Tuskegee. 0-3 Tuskegee falls to Savannah State University. How the mighty have fallen. Chris, any thoughts on this game? And is this a turning point for Savannah State, or is this just Tuskegee being stuck in the mud?
Tuskegee is stuck in neutral, or they might even be in reverse. You're winning this game at home, right? And then you have special teams problems. That's really what this is too. Those special teams problems really cause issues for them. And so not being able to put the ball twice to get out of your own territory was the real issue for Tuskegee that allowed Savannah State to creep back in, but to take that win. So they have some real problems down there.
Smoke in the city. Bowie State finally got into the W column. Against Livingstone. A revenge game, it was termed for them. For the way things went down in Salisbury in 2023. Please, guys, remember to like the stream and let us know who all is in the stream as well. But yeah, let's see. Somebody check all the bridges in Louisiana to make sure Kendrick isn't walking on any of them. Yeah, man, look. Hey, we've been there. But we're not there right now.
No.
So
no.
So yeah, it's definitely Livingstone went up to Prince George's County. They played their first 3 games at home, Chris, and they looked kind of shell-shocked early on. Down 17-0. But there's one thing about Livingstone, there's one thing they're gonna do. They're gonna fight.
You're gonna fight, yep.
They're gonna fight. They're going to fight. They fought their way back into the game, got it tied at 17, and then they started throwing the ball to the other team. Yeah, Chris, what were your thoughts on this game? Again, Bowie had a, is Bowie at a point where they have to start realizing that scheduling these guys out of conference, their program might not be there just yet anymore?
No, I wouldn't say that. Some games you schedule because you kind of want to see where your team's at.
Mm-hmm.
Like Fayetteville State and Valdosta, that's what that was. Lenore Ryan and Bowie, that's to me what that was. Like you schedule those games to kind of see where your team is and and at least teams get to see like this is what it takes to be at that level. So I don't have an issue with that. And now let's think about Davenport. They had a chance to win that game. The next week, this past Saturday, Davenport is at home, and they were leading the 11th ranked team in Division II in Central Missouri, and they had a chance to take that game, and they let Central Missouri score at the very end. And so Davenport lost by 1 point. Like, I mean, I know it's transitive properties and that doesn't always transfer in football, but like Bowie State was right there with a team like that. So that's a positive thing to see out of a school like or a team like Bowie State.
Mm-hmm.
But then now you come in conference and you're playing Livingstone and you start off pretty hot, and then you allow Livingstone to sort of crawl back into that game, and you're like, man, like, is this a case of just familiar opponents? Because you couldn't put them away. Like, you couldn't live with prosperity at first, and then Livingstone kind of just sort of got in their own way when they were forced to try to keep up at that point. They just couldn't do it. And so, yeah, what I really liked out of that game with Livingstone is that they could run the ball. They could run that ball. The running back Muhammad,
he's a big guy. He's a big boy.
He is, yes. And I think he rushed over 100 yards again.
He's been eating all his porridge. So
that's what I'm saying. Like they have something there. There's something to work with there, Livingstone. But that passing game is still a real question mark, even with all those quarterbacks on the roster. But what does it say about what does it say about Bowie State? I don't know. Our boy is not here yet because I can't wait for him to get here. But he was upset the fact that I said Bowie State, Livingstone were kind of on par. And that's what it really felt like to me after seeing that game.
They were at home. They were at home.
Yeah.
They had a home field advantage.
And that's why I didn't pick Livingstone. I know folks are all upset I didn't pick Livingstone, but that home field advantage matters when you're kind of even like that to me. And so for Bowie, like, I don't know. I think I just need to see them, against a team that's more like in the middle of the conference or towards the top of the conference to kind of see how that goes. And we get to see that, this weekend. So, or we might be able to see it this weekend. Who knows? It's that time of year, man. It's that time of year. The only team that I expect to play this weekend, no matter what, is Fayetteville State, because they're gonna play the Hurricane year after year. They're gonna play. They're good for Hurricane games. They're the only ones that I expect to play on Hurricane.
I am still mad. It's just kind of ticked me off today that they tried to have homecoming during the middle of hurricane season. Anyway. Woo, man, that blew me. All right. So let's continue going over last week's results. And so the game that I got a chance to go to, Virginia Union, Johnson C. Smith. Chris, this was a game of the CIAA reigning champion versus the team that has gotten off to a hot start. And last week, I said, hey, they haven't beat a team that's won a game yet. Well, you know what, Johnson C. Smith, you proved me wrong. You beat a team that won one game. Now they beat Kentucky State. They beat them pretty good, but they are the defending champions, and they did get the win, 21-16. Chris, this was interesting to me. I think what sticks out to me is at the end of the game, up 21-16. Coach Flowers, instead of kicking a field goal, and I know I'm not exactly sure where they were, but I know they were inside their own 20 for sure, probably inside their own 15, and maybe inside their own 10. You got a chance to go up. You got a chance to go up by 8 points, and you elect to actually try to go for it. Now they didn't get it. Does that say that? Is there a question about the confidence in the kicker, and if so, is that something that can come back to bite Johnson C. Smith later in the year?
I think that was maybe more confidence in the defense than the kicker. Like, they tried to go for the kill shot, it didn't work, they missed, but that meant VUU was going to have to drive down the field, and there was one person that I know they were saying was not going to beat them. And that was Jada Byers. They were not going to let Jada Byers beat them. If VU was going to win, it was going to have to be on the arm of the backup quarterback, Mark Wright. And they had their chances. But, they couldn't do it.
Yeah, Chris, so it's funny you say that. And I had the clip queued up, but I'm not gonna get cussed out by Kobe to try to play it on here. So I'm gonna roll with it. I'm just gonna talk it out. So afterwards, there was a huge pass. After they did that, there was a huge pass, and so I was shooting photos. So I was actually on the back end because they were so close to the end zone. I just kind of stayed back there to see what's what. They get a huge bomb, and it looked like the guy from where I was, like the guy went in for a touchdown. But he was ruled out of bounds. Yeah. I went back and watched. I went back. So, my people in the stands, they were not JCSU or VUU said he ain't stepped out of bounds. Like multiple people, multiple angles, they said he didn't step out of bounds. But you know what? We don't have any replays. So, Yeah, the rest. So, yeah, some might say that Brave Boy madness that sometimes happens in Brave Boy Gymnasium might have trickled over. I'm just saying what people are saying. Again, I was on the back end of it. It looked like he scored, but I was way back there. They said he stepped out of bounds. I watched the replay. It was definitely worth watching the replay again. Yeah. But as we have again a neutral party here, Cope. I'll let you. I won't press the button. But SU Jag says that they need replay. He did not step out. Again, I heard that from a lot of people. But hey, either way, Johnson C. Smith remains the darling of CIAA D2 football right now. Again, I go back at when you were watching it. Do you recall? Did it look like he stepped out of bounds for you, Chris?
I couldn't tell. Like the camera angle that was used for the live stream, it didn't go down far enough.
Quite erratic, yeah.
Yeah, well, that too, but it wasn't enough where you could see the sideline, so I couldn't really tell if he stepped out or not.
Yeah, So the Virginia Union still had other chances, didn't get it done. So you had Johnson C. Smith, Coach Flowers, who we had on last week, picking up the win, and now they are 4-0, and we believe this game counted as a CIAA win. And we'll talk about that in just a second, why I say we believe when we pull up the CIAA standings after this, talking about this last game. And Ellis says that they dodged one. They definitely did. It was close. Let's see. And so the last game that we'll talk about what happened last week as we transition over to this week. Winston-Salem State went up to Ettrick. And what do you know? Virginia State couldn't turn the lights out on them this time. And lo and behold, I'm sorry, I was there. The lights just happened to go out, and
you can't turn the sun off.
Exactly. Literally, Chris. The day before, I tweeted. I said, and I think you saw it. I was like, well, the one good thing about the game being on at 1 p.m. is they cannot turn the lights out. They didn't, and what do you know? Winston-Salem State again, the second week in a row, finds a way to win the game. Chris, finds a way to win. Your thoughts on this game? I know you were able to watch it. I had other things going on, but yeah, what were your thoughts?
Well, this was another game that also had a bit of a blunder that instant replay could have used.
Oh yeah, I heard time was an issue. Like I heard some stuff about this time clock thing. Like what in the world? Like, come on.
Yeah. But this was a very well done game on HBCU Go. And I mentioned in my column that I felt like, Winston-Salem State to win this game, they was going to have a knockout punch. And that's not how this game went at all. I mean, it was one of those, we're going to settle for field goals all over again, and before you knew it, Virginia State had two touchdowns. And you're like, man, what is Winston-Salem State going to do to climb out of a 14-6 hole? Well, they just kind of just kept at it. And then Noah Marshall came out of nowhere for that long 77-yard touchdown run that, people were just like, man, like that shouldn't, the ball got punched out. I think he caught a cramp close to the end zone. And so, but again, no replay. And then at the end, Trayvon Hester, the running back, the primary running back for Winston-Salem State, the one who stands out of the 5 or 6 that they play in a game, he was the one who sort of, carried them quite a bit in that fourth quarter, along with, Dalen Lee and his ability to convert third downs with really great passing. So if it was Winston-Salem State, you wish this game would have been, a couple of touchdowns on the board rather than having to settle for field goals. But hey, you know what? A blue and gold team once told us that a win's a win. And so 15-14.
All wins matter.
Oh, so hey, take a 15-14 win.
Even when you have 29 more scholarships. Anyway, a win is a win now. So yeah, it definitely is after everything, after inventing pretty much every way known to man to lose games at the last minute. It definitely is. But actually Coach Massey was asked about the red zone. I thought about putting that in here, but I didn't put it in there. He was asked about the red zone stuff. He felt pretty good about their red zone. He feels pretty good about their red zone numbers. I think he's
what?
Like they wouldn't. Yeah, he
no.
Did
you ask that question?
No, I didn't ask that question. The question was asked about the red zone, and one of the reporters said there's one concern that we have. It is the red. So they have scored 12 out of the 15 times they've been in the red zone this season, which is 4th in the CIAA, which is good. But yeah, there's that field goal thing, man. There's that field goal thing. And again, that could have lost them the game. That could have very well lost them the game in at Ohio Dominican and this one as well. So we'll see. For sure.
Let me just say something real quick. So my schoolwork is getting pushed back this weekend because of the hurricane, which is okay, good. I can actually enjoy the games this weekend instead of trying to do 2 things at once. which means I will be opening up a bottle of wine. And I wonder how much of that bottle will I be drinking by the end of this game if I have to drink every time Winston State kicks a field goal. Because that's all they're doing right now. Like yes, you're winning, but now you need to transition into like get into the end zone. Like, please stop field goals. Please stop. Like show us that you have more now because you're going to need that more later. I think.
Yeah, for sure. So we will.
Glasses, 4 glasses, probably not even shots. That's like 4/5 of a wine bottle.
Yeah, man. So before we get into this week, man, let's talk a little bit. So we were talking about Kobe. Whenever you get a chance, if you can cue up the standings, we can take a look at these. So doing this prep for the show, I was able to look at a press conference from Virginia Union. We'll pull that up in just a second. But so right now we got Johnson C. Smith 4-0. They are 1-0 in conference. Now the team that they beat was Virginia Union last week. If you will turn your eyes downward to Virginia Union, what is Virginia Union's conference record? It's 0-0. 0-0.
Yeah.
And even my Siri is confused. And if you look at Winston-Salem State, they got the W as well over Virginia State. If you look at that, what is it? What is it for Virginia State? They are 0-0. How does this happen? Because I was confusion, and I think you and I just worked it out, and we'll have to get this confirmed. But so typically the CIAA has gone to an 8-game schedule of conference games. Previously, you played 3 crossover games and you play 5 division games. Well, this year they went away from divisions. We don't have St. Aug. So because of that, the teams in the South, and because it happened so late, the teams in the South, they lost one of their games, so they had to pick up another game. And some schools didn't even pick up another game.
Yep.
Some schools being Livingstone and Fayetteville State didn't pick up another game. So what the CIAA has had to do is go to a 7-game conference schedule. So that is how you get Winston-Salem State beating Virginia State, yet Virginia State does not have a conference loss. That is how you get Virginia Union losing to Johnson C. Smith, yet Virginia Union does not have a conference loss. Those were to be CIAA games, but now they are only CIAA games for those teams. And we're still trying to figure out how it works because Bowie State, that was their first game against a CIAA opponent, their win against Livingstone, and they have a win. But Livingstone doesn't. Yeah. So we got to make some calls over to the CIAA. Chris, of course, they never make anything easy for us there, do they?
No, they don't. But I think what happened too is that so if you think about the schedule and the way that it's laid out, you had you still have the old South-North split. So the back half of the schedule is what was the old divisional schedule. And with St. Aug going out, I imagine that St. Aug would have been on Bowie's schedule as a crossover game. So that left Bowie down. So basically you have 8 teams that you got several teams, I should say, including the South or the old South, that they don't have that 8th game anymore. So they get to count that first game as a conference game. But then the other ones that wouldn't have had St. Aug on their schedule, for example, they don't. They don't have to. They already played a conference opponent and it didn't count. And that's what you have right now. So I suspect that's what's happening from just looking at the tea leaves.
Deductive reasoning, man. Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows what it'll look like by the time we get to November. But we will work to find it out. So it's going to be interesting. We thought we knew. We had no idea. Just like that old TV show. Virginia State and Virginia Union actually don't have a CIAA loss at this point, which makes things even more interesting than what it was already going to be. So we do have. We'll talk about it, but again, the CIAA, the teams in the Southern, everyone will have equal game. Yeah, but man, yeah, John, but like you get an L, one L counts and one L, and what L doesn't, because now Virginia State and Virginia Union are still lossless. They're still 0-0 in CIAA play, and again, everybody is going to be going based off record. They might not lose another game. It's just gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting for sure. So all is not lost for the state of Virginia. They might not even be in a hole.
You can't use a tiebreaker though. Like if you have to deal with a tiebreaker, then that may be an issue because you technically can't count it. I would imagine. So that may be an issue, but outside of that, I mean, you had to look at common opponents probably in a tiebreaker scenario.
Because who wants to do it the easy way? This is the CIAA. Who wants to do it the easy way?
What if this turns into like the VAC, where they had like 5 teams and like tied at the end?
Well,
chaos.
I mean, hey, CIAA is the father of the MEAC, so it would only be right. But we do have a championship game, so there just might be some sore folks about who doesn't get in. So we'll see. But yeah, I know we talked about it. Chris, you were on the press conference, and thanks for everybody who's giving comments. I really appreciate you guys. You were on the press conference for Virginia Union. A question was asked about the strength of the league. Again, all the teams that are in North Carolina have at least 2 wins. That would be Johnson C. Smith, 4-0, Winston-Salem State 3-1. You got a couple. You got Fayetteville State at 2-1. You've got both
Shaw.
Shaw is at 3-1.
3-1.
Right? 3-1. And then you've got Livingstone and ECSU who are both at 2-2. So everybody's got at least 2 wins at this point. So they asked Coach Parker of Virginia Union, who's been a dominant team, about the league this year. So we'll let Coach Parker give his thoughts, and then we'll come back.
Is there a better level of competition maybe in the CIAA this year? Are you sensing that at all? Because I'm seeing, I'm seeing some really good stuff happening. Just wondering what your perspective is.
We got a bunch of good teams in the league, and everybody kind of raised their level with everything they were doing. And I think it just kind of came over time. We got a lot of stability with coaching staffs and things like that, where you're going to see a lot of the same coaching staffs, kind of within their teams, becoming better. And everybody's doing everything they have to do to be better. We kind of get together a couple times a year, and we kind of talk. And a lot of the things that the coaches, kind of wanted to create was to make sure that we were strong in conference. So everybody's done that. I think everybody's taking the time to make sure that they built up their roster the way they need to build it up, and done the things they need to do to make sure that they're extremely competitive team. So you look around the CIAA as a whole, and we're playing a lot of good ball, and you can kind of tell that by some of the out of conference wins and some of the tough games that you'll see between CIAA teams kind of going on. So I'm excited about the brand of football that the CIAA brings, and I'm excited about what we can do for our final 8 games of the regular season.
We'd like to let everybody know that this past weekend's game against Johnson C. Smith was a non-con.
Yeah, and that's where shout out to Jim Juno, the SID over at Virginia Union, telling us, because nobody else did. I think we were all I think a lot of people were under the impression that those guys were in a 1-0 hole over in Virginia, but hey, not the case. So, and to that end, we talk about schools improving. And one of them is Winston-Salem State. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Kobe, let me know if you got that clip from Coach Massey. If you don't, I got it here, so I can play it just so we won't be. All right, I'll go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, well, what you're seeing is the parity of this conference. It's a long time ago, You talked about the South, the name that would come up would be just Savannah State. Then it turned for a while, now it's Fayetteville State. Well, that's no longer the case. For one, we have the mega conference, but at the end of the day, you look, Johnson C. Smith, you know, they're 4-0, 5-0, whatever the case may be, first time since 1982. Coach Fowles, great friend of mine, is doing extremely well. But the parallels are simple, man. Folk are improving the resources so we can go out and get the players we need to have the turnaround. You know, there's some good coaching going on in the CIAA. There's some good recruiting going on in the CIAA. So you can't just say who's projected to win because, you know, again, if we listen to the critics, for lack of a better word, V State would have won it. But that's why you play this game. You know, the beauty in this game is you can't talk it. You got to play it. And we're in a position now where, you know, hey, we took our bumps, our bruises, and our lumps, and we're growing, we're developing, and we like our position. Hell, I wish it was better. Meaning we wish we could have got A&T Ed, but at the end of the day, we didn't. So we move on.
Yeah, there you go. We got Coach Robert Massey over at Winston-Salem State. His guys are 3-1. Big matchup against Bowie State this week coming up. But let's go ahead and look ahead at some of the games, and we will get to that one as well as others. Let's start off Edward Waters and Tuskegee. Tuskegee. I'm guessing the panic button has been smashed out at this point, right? They've broken the glass on the fire extinguishers. You know, the shed is, you know, they're sending smoke signals off the top of the shed. What's your thought about this game? Two teams that, you know, last year Edward Waters took this game. Now Tuskegee's looking for some payback.
Yeah, but aren't they gonna have to go on the road to do that? I mean, I'm not seeing it here. I'm just not. They just got too much stuff to figure out right now. Like it's hard enough to try to win at home, and you can't do that against teams that, you know, they play other schools and they have a hard time, and then they come to you and somehow they figure it out, and now you got to deal with doing that on the road. I'm just not seeing it.
Okay. Yeah. So Edward Waters, President Faison, I'm sure he would love nothing better for that. Edward Waters, looking at, you know, they were last year's darling this year, trying to get back into it. And let's show these guys some love a little bit. We got not one but two teams, Chris, coming off a win over in the SIAC, and that would be Benedict and Morehouse And I don't know if our guy Sly is still on. I know he is a Benedict grad. I know there's a lot of work down there in the SIC, and I know that he loves giving Morehouse grief. But both teams are coming off a win. I mean, it was Kentucky State, same win that Virginia Union's got. So maybe I'm not gonna say that Morehouse is as good as Virginia Union, but hey, they both got a win against Kentucky State. Benedict, last week they were able to pull off the win. Any predictions on this, or?
Well, I think Morehouse is kind of continuing to build, right? I mean, they were kind of left on the side for dead for a while, and they seem to be finding something that works. And so, you know, I think that this game may actually be more competitive than what people may give it. But I also say that because I'm a little concerned about Benedict's defense, and they seem to kind of get into these games where they're going to have to really put points on the board. They can't lean on the defense to get them to victory on their own. So I like Benedict a little bit more in this game. I think they're still a little bit more consistent on offense, but by no means is this a gimme for Benedict at all.
Okay. Let's see. The folks over in Salisbury, and I do see we have Coach Worthington said 5th winning season. Wow, in history. Says only your last 7 counts. So yeah, that's still going to be interesting though. You know, because what if we get to the point where it's between Smith and yeah, that's going to be interesting. It'll make for some great conversation. Yeah, Morehouse to D1. I mean, look, it could happen. It could happen. I mean, look, if you got two parties who, hey, they want somebody, they want to belong to somebody, hey, there you go. That there are people that are salivating over them. So one conference's also ran as another conference's key to a market. Who knows? Yeah. So we shall see. Livingstone, we got the matchup of LC versus LU, Chris. Lincoln last year looked like they were on the rise. They looked like they had the offensive player of the year, Isaiah Freeman. They were kind of a fun team to watch. Got some wins, and people were thinking they were on the rise, but they have been flattened every which way but loose. They've had the stripes beaten off of them. I'm sorry, they're Lions. They've had their mane. Let's say that their mane has been castrated. Just gotten stumped back-to-back weeks in North Carolina. First in Charlotte, then in Durham. They get a North Carolina team, but they do get them up in Lincoln. It will be Livingstone making another long bus ride after Bowie. They will now have to ride up to Lincoln. Do you feel like, as bad as Lincoln has played, this is still a winnable game, given Livingstone's still questionable passing situation and a lot of questions? Or do you think Livingstone has those wins that they got at home have built some confidence that will carry on the road?
Well, Livingstone seems to be a little susceptible in the air. And that's probably where Lincoln can really do some things, and also with Isaiah Freeman being mobile. But I tell you, man, my concern is not necessarily Lincoln's offense as much as it is their defense, and their defense has certainly reverted to form, and not in a good way. And so, I think that gives Livingstone an advantage because they seem to be much more productive on offense, especially in the running game. They both have notable weaknesses. I think I'm going to take Livingstone in this game. I think Lincoln probably has one of the better home field advantages. If you've not listened to a Lincoln game, it's pretty entertaining. It's something I really do look forward to doing, is watching a Lincoln game. But man, the Lions just haven't shown enough for me to really want to pick them at this point, and it's a shame. I thought they were going to be on the rise, and man, it seemed like the coaches got it right in the preseason poll. Like, good grief.
Yeah, that part. We will see. We will see if Livingstone can bounce back and pick up their third win in 5 games. I think the fact that they were able to put some points together against Bowie State will give them some confidence. And I think I like LC over LU in this one. Next up, we go up to the CIAA, and yes, folks, we do believe we're gonna have to confirm, but this one will actually count. Virginia Union against Shaw. Again, we come into this game. Shaw 3-1. They are 1-0. Their game did count in the CIAA. Christian Peters has thrown for damn near, over 800 yards and 13 touchdowns in 4 games. And if that wasn't enough, their running back Trevon Tinsley, he's got 393 yards on the season, 5.1 yards a carry. The defense has 6 interceptions. And they're running the clock, man. They are eating up clock, 33 minutes and 13 seconds per game. Time of possession. Man, there's a lot to like about this Shaw team. They're going up against Virginia Union, who, obviously they're coming off the tough loss last week. The quarterback situation still seems fluid from what, Coach Parker said. Chris, what are your thoughts on this game? And does Shaw shock the world in Richmond, or do does Virginia Union finally return to the Virginia Union that we're used to in this battle of CIAA Maroons?
Oh, well, this is a very intriguing game because, I think if we started the season, would have expected the reverse in terms of records for these two schools. Um, Shaw's really kind of sort of hitting on all cylinders right now. And that combination, that wide receiver that they have with the Ashawn Belcher, John Barnes, and Maceo Wingate. I mean, that's a pretty formidable group of receivers to go up against. And as JCSU saw with VUU, they got some issues in that secondary. I mean, they really Golden Bulls really showed kind of a blueprint to beat Virginia Union. So the downside though is that like JCSU didn't score a ton of points to get there. It was 21-16. And I think that was kind of like the kind of physical game that you expected in something like this. Now, does Shaw have enough depth to do that, to have that kind of physical game? That's kind of what I would like to see, because we know what Virginia Union is, and they kind of beat you up. So I just really kind of wonder if that's the case for Shaw, and then also on the Virginia Union side, like, are they going to stick with Mark Wright? Can they do enough to get Jada Byers free? It's kind of hard to tell because, man, they've sure looked kind of pedestrian lately on the offense.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I look at the stats, man. Virginia Union is just, man, you think about Virginia Union, you think about running the ball. Like, since the offenses were wearing leather helmets, you just think Virginia Union's going to run the ball. But Virginia Union has possessed the ball, Chris. If the stats, if the research team tells me this is the truth, 23 minutes and 41 seconds a game, Chris.
Yeah, they're trying to run the ball with Jada Byers, but then he didn't even have 50 yards rushing last week.
Yeah, that part. Wow.
So it's kind of easy to get off the field if you're trying to run the ball and you can't go anywhere.
And Chris, they are also allowing their opponents to complete 48% of their third downs. So, I mean, if you get them in third down, man, you got a good chance of getting to that first down. So that's kept their defense on the field. So, yeah, they're interesting game here. Is there a doom alert for Virginia Union? Do you have a doom alert, or not ready to pull that trigger just yet?
No, I'm not ready to pull that trigger just yet. I'm not ready just yet.
Okay. We've held on. As we got appreciate everybody for tuning in. Please make sure you guys hit that like button. We definitely appreciate that. Please share this as well. All right, so the next game, we got another game. Now, this one as well, we hope, we think, we pray, will count. Virginia State taking on Fayetteville State. Kind of a similar situation, Chris. Virginia State lost to a team in North Carolina. They got another team from North Carolina who is coming to town. Fayetteville State, they last year they ended up they went undefeated in the conference during the regular season last year. So they know how to win on the road. Up against a Virginia State team that, right now to this point has a win over Benedict and nothing else. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, the number one issue with Virginia State right now is rush defense. Their rushing defense is just terrible right now.
Just nasty.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
And no, not even.
It's nasty. It's not nasty. It's nasty.
Right. I mean, they got to fix that in a hurry. Because if they don't, then I mean, the CIAA is known as a running league, and so yeah.
Yeah, man,
So
they might have to see if Carlos Fields got any more eligibility the way they've been tackling, man. Shout out
yeah,
to the DC over there. Yeah, man, you talk about that defense. They have allowed 221 yards rushing per game, and nothing would make Fayetteville State happier than to run that ball down their throats.
yeah.
They also don't get into the red zone, Chris. They've only scored 5 touchdowns in 8 red zone trips.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that like if you're Fayetteville State, like you used to being in some really close games and pulling those out. And so, if I had a doom alert, it's probably for Virginia State because I think that they're going to fall behind. They were the preseason, they were the preseason
Number
pick
one.
to win the
Mhm.
conference, and that shocked a lot of people. But it shocked a lot of people because they thought that VUU was going to be number one. But I think that they're really at risk of falling behind in this conference race now, going against Fayetteville State here. So that's the one I'm really concerned about in terms of Virginia State.
They got a mulligan. It didn't count as a loss for them in the CIAA. So there is that. We'll have to see. And then as we get ready to wrap things up, Winston-Salem State, Bowie State. So these two teams have not matched up since 2019 in Bowman Gray Stadium. Bowie State came down, and this is one of the years that were undefeated. They were in the middle of their runs, and even in their championship seasons, Chris, they've gotten their games against Winston-Salem State have not been easy, and so Winston-Salem State comes in 3-1, back on their home field, and they played 3 of those games on the road. So they're coming back to the friendly confines of Bowman Gray Stadium. You talk about running the ball. They're running for 170.3 yards a game. Trevon Hester, 300 yards, rushing yards a game, despite sharing carries with Noah Marshall, despite who I believe got injured on that touchdown play. Also, you got Asa Barnes. They got a whole room full of running backs, and they like to run the ball. If you're Bowie State, Chris, they have what are you seeing out of Bowie State? Right now they're running for it. They're pretty balanced. They're running for 140. They're passing for 140. Neither of those spectacular, but what are you thinking?
Well, when they made a quarterback change to Kevin Taylor, I think that really gave them a spark on their offense. And I also just think that Bowie State hasn't been running the ball pretty well over the last couple of seasons. And so I think you're seeing a little bit more life out of the running game in order to allow them to be a little bit more balanced. One area that I think is being overlooked is like their DBs, and we've known Bowie State to have some really good defensive backs over the years, and so over the last few years, and I think you're seeing a little bit of that come to life. And we saw that against Livingstone, where they were able to get interceptions or pass breakups to kind of slow down that Blue Bear offense. And so I think it will be a formidable test because Dalen Lee's been pretty efficient. That he threw that interception last week in the end zone, but those have been few and far between. Winston State, they're kind of built to try to wear you down and sort of take control that way. And so, unlike last year when after the first half they would really run out of steam, it's like they've gotten better and better over the course of a game. And so that's what I'm looking at really in terms of how this sort of plays out is, do we end up in that game where it's just inching along, or does Winston State get up pretty quickly and they kind of stay up?
Yeah,
Or they fall behind. I mean, they could legit fall behind in this game. Bowie, you can't really sleep on them because they got a little something going there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think the WSSU defense has been really great against D2 opponents. They're only allowing 10 points a game. You think about Bluefield State, Ohio Dominican, and then Virginia State. They've only allowed 30 points in those 3 games. So that's good for them. They have 6 interceptions. Justin Fleming, he just finds a way to get his hands on the ball all the time. Even last week, he didn't pick off a pass, but he got his hand on the ball that the defensive lineman picked up. Kamar Kyle, yeah, he got the pick. You also look at WSSU. You talk about Dalen Lee, and the running game has been really great, and they've leaned on that this year. Dalen Lee, so far, he has 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and I think if WSSU is really going to be a contender for the title, they're going to need more out of Dalen Lee. I know that Coach Massey alluded to that. He hasn't had a breakout game, but he has been solid, like you said, third down conversions and things like that. And he's had some plays that have just been just short of the end zone. But I think I'd like to see them be, I'd like to see them be more aggressive. He's only averaging he's averaging less than 5.5 yards per attempt. And I know you don't have Mobley this year, so that's a different look. But I feel like if they give them the chance to be more aggressive, I think some of these close games start to not be quite as close anymore. I don't know. Is it maybe it being a coach who's who's a defensive minded and running the ball? I don't know. But it's definitely going to be interesting for sure. So we've got a lot of football to look forward to this week. I'll ask you, Chris, do you expect WSSU to be able to pull this one out at home?
Yes, absolutely, I do. They play pretty well at home in general. And I think they got a little bit more on both sides of the ball that they should be able to sort of lean on Bowie State and kind of come out of there with a win.
Yeah. Okay. So SU Jack says SU will win. Now she's talking about Southern, which I never, there's some schools in this. There's some schools in the CIAA who call themselves SU as well. I know you used to live in the area, so that is that Shaw U, is that WSSU? I know. Just because we're on the D2 show, otherwise I wouldn't ask. But please clarify. But it. So definitely we got a great week of CIAA football. We think all the games. Oh, okay. She says she's talking about your SU, so WSSU.
Thank you for your clarification.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it, especially from the real SU. I think it's gonna be a great weekend of football. Hopefully, folks will get a chance to enjoy it. Chris, are you you staying close to home? You said you only expect Fayetteville State to play, so I'm guessing you're gonna be staying home.
Yeah, you gonna sit in on Hurricane game? I'm good. No, I can't do that, man. But I probably was.
As someone who's done it, I understand. Yeah. I think it should be a great day of D2 football for sure. So please, guys, thank everybody for tuning in, whether you tune in on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. I appreciate everybody for tapping in. Please make sure you hit that like button before you go out if you haven't. Shout out to everybody who came on this week. And, we'll make sure we'll do this again for you guys next week. Shout out to our producer, Kobe. I think this was maybe the least stressed out show he's had with me. Maybe last week might have been too, but so appreciate everybody for tuning in. Chris, any last words? What are you sipping on this weekend? Let the people know.
I don't know about that just yet. I have to figure out what I want to do, but looking forward to a great weekend. It's going to be a lot of questions answered, I think, going into after this weekend. So, be sure to check out the feed on X, and should be a lot from start to finish. We got games at 1, we got games at 6. So, make sure you tune in, and there's going to be a lot going on. And stay safe, because there are some games being canceled, especially if you're in the SIAC, closer to the coast. There may not even be a game. You got to think about that. I think Albany has moved their game, I believe.
Yeah, to 4 p.m. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just keep checking the schedules and stuff too, and the websites, because some of those games may or may not be played or may be moved around. So, that's my thoughts.
All right, guys. Until next time, enjoy your D2 football, and we will see you later.
It's SJG D2 HBCU Football.
Sleep on Livingstone if you want to, and they can really punish you for it.
Fayetteville State, they're never sexy, but they won.
Sometimes we have to eat our crow. And I got to eat my crow this week, okay?
Doom alert. Yeah, we're back at Heartbreak Hotel.